India is treated as a quasi-federal state. And within this framework, union territories have a different position. In that position, union territories have a centralized control, and that centralized control is because of various reasons. What reason is given for Chandigarh to be named as a union territory? And if you understand that context, you will know the present news article. Clear? So I want you to go back, open your textbooks, polity textbook, Lakshmikant, go to the chapter of union territories. In that, what are the various reasons given for various union territories? How did they evolve? From prelim standpoint, look at the chronology of the designation given to this. The tag of union territory is given at different time periods and different reasons. First list down that reasons, then read this article. It will make some sense. Okay, once the issue comes to a some maturity level, we will discuss this. At this level, it is not necessary. Now, when it comes to the second question, second article for the day, UNSC reforms, no longer an option but a necessity. What is the context of this article? Let's try to understand that part. UNSC. What is the purpose of UNSC's existence? Peace and security. Within the UN framework, you've had UNSC, but what is the problem with this? Veto, which is the most contentious issue. See, any activity or any decision that we take, as in the world takes through UNSC, can be literally stopped by one of the 5 permanent members, and this is very biased and is set in a world that is almost 75 years old. The contemporary realities have changed. For example, Africa doesn't have any representation. Asia is underrepresented. What is the position of India, which is one of the largest economies in the world? Given our credentials with respect to the contribution towards the central purpose with which this organization exists, peace, where do we stand in that framework? We don't have a place. The so-called Global South, which has continuously been the subject of this discrimination because of the historical factors like colonization, imperialism, we don't have a present representation there. So when we're talking about UNSC, first look at the structure, the structural design. There you need a reform. You need to constantly see if it is living up to the expectation it was set up for. If it was, why do you think Russia-Ukraine war would happen? Obviously, it will not happen. Not only Russia-Ukraine war, the latest Gaza conflict or Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, any conflict basically. Even in the African continent, there were many civil conflicts. In none of those areas, UNSC had been effective. And in such kind of a system, if you are essentially putting this veto power, that organization over a period of time will become pointless. This pointless existence is the biggest problem of UNSC at this point of time. Not just UNSC, take any global level forum, World Trade Organization. To a large extent, even people are questioning the existence of WHO. Is there any question about the necessity for a global level organization? No. But are they being effective? That's a larger question. And a lot has said about reforms, but nothing really happened. The reason is this asymmetrical power balance that needs to be corrected. Democracy is the only answer. When I say democracy, again, equal footing should be given for all the nations, and that's when you will restore that balance. In this context, where do you see opportunities for India? What are the contemporary issues that India can take up leadership in? Climate change, terrorism, and even establishing a rules-based world order, restoring that balance, negotiating the power as a representative of the global south. And we also have a larger ambition of being a Vishwaguru. What do you mean by that Vishwaguru tag? Any idea? Because everybody writes those points in the conclusion. What do you mean by Vishwaguru? Role model. How do you set that example? How do you become a Vishwaguru? Here is where you can go back and really look at the origin of that word. Who coined that word Vishwaguru? Rabindranath Tagore. Go back and read his poems. You'll understand the vision that he had for his country. There is another poem by Tagore, Ekle Chalore. Just go back and read that Ekle Chalore poem. You will really know a thing or two about the vision he had for this country. Alright, so UNSC reforms, there we go. So in this structure, whenever you're talking about these reforms, broadly speaking, even in international relations, first, whenever you're talking about this, how do you structure your thought? Purpose. Why does it exist? Relevance. Is it working or not? Or not? If yes, what is working well? If no, what is not working well? Usually the answer will lie in these three ideas only. Same, just like in Indian governance, where things don't happen as per our plan because we don't have enough funds, we don't have enough skilled people, don't have enough power. Okay? In international relations, this will slightly change. The funds and functionaries problem are secondary. Major problem is asymmetrical power balance. So when you don't have enough power, you can't really take decisions that will tilt that balance. How do you restore that balance? Again, by more democracy and pushing for reforms, negotiation, dialogue, the so-called DNA approach. Clear? Dialogue, negotiation, action. So this is the thought process I want you to have and apply it for both bilateral relations, multilateral relations, and international relations organizations at global level. Same thought process should be deployed. Clear? All right. This article, it's not really directly important, but just you need to be aware of the contemporary events that are going on. As such, I will not dictate that this is useful, this is not useful, and I believe in the capability of the students who can try to contextualize this and make it useful in the larger broader idea of the theme. Like, we don't know how you will use it directly. Maybe in essay, maybe in ethics, maybe as a contextual example in polity. You wouldn't know. So don't brush off anything, but just be aware of what the article is trying to say. There are some of the titles that one of the Supreme Court report wanted to get rid of. Judiciary has been using this kind of terminology, and this is called the grammar of inequality. Why is this important? As a matter of philosophy, GS2, judiciary, the foundational principles of judiciary. what is the assigned role as per the concept of separation of powers to judiciary? What is the role? Watchdog of the constitutional principles, which include basic thing is equality, which is so fundamental that our fundamental rights, the first set of rights start with equality. When you are a guardian of such esteemed body of knowledge and you are supposed to uphold that principles in your day-to-day existence, when you are a participant in that even subconsciously, when the language itself reflects that you are acknowledging the very inequality that you want to curb through a casual references to the socially accepted language. This is the context where this entire report is coming up from. Take a look at here. Cycle Savar, Dhobi, Scavenger, many words like this, Chaukidar. These are some of the words which are socially relevant because it was normalized. But there is an element of, how do I put it? Like there is an element of condescending attitude towards this jobs which are treated as if they are not worthy of having. In the social structure and our culture itself, the concept of dignity of labor is kind of alien to us. Even though on the surface level we acknowledge it, that we all want dignity of labor, there is an inherent bias. And to fix that inherent bias, that social change will not come from society itself. Sometimes judiciary should take up the initiative. Okay? So this social transformative role that our constitution has also signifies the present phase of judiciary's jurisprudence. Every phase of judiciary will have its own set of philosophy. In the initial days, it interpreted the text as it is. This is called the textualist approach. Like this, we have discussed multiple times about judiciary. In the present phase, we are talking about a situation where judiciary becomes a vehicle for social transformation, and therefore the present phase of judicial interpretation is called transformative constitutionalism. As a guardian of such important document, that is the constitution, our constitutional makers envisage that judiciary should lead by example. So this report wants to get rid of a casual usage of this kind of derogatory words from the lexicon, that is the grammar, vocabulary of judiciary. This is what the article is saying. Okay, so you can use this as a symbolism that can be signifying a social change. You can use this in ethics as an example. You can note down the name of the report and what it stands for. Okay. The letter has won, but the spirit has not lost. Letter and spirit. This is in the context of the presidential reference and the discretionary power of both the president and the governor. We have discussed this issue already. Now, let me ask this question. There are two different judgments given by the Supreme Court in two different contexts. One is with respect to a petition with respect to Tamil Nadu governor stalling the bills. And then you have a second different but somehow relevant petition where the president asked the Supreme Court about the power of governor and the constitutional interpretation. Okay, this is called the presidential reference, and Supreme Court gave an answer with respect to that. The other day we were talking about how the 5-judge bench gave an answer and clarity about the role of governor in this entire fiasco. Is governor an agent of the center? Is governor an agent of the center? No. Governor is not, he's a standalone, like separately to preserve the state autonomy, and yet there is a delicate balance between the center and the states. You have to balance that, right? As far as the bills are concerned, when there is a reference to the president, then governor for that moment might feel like he's an agent of the center. Because India is a quasi-federal state where there is a unitary bias with an intent to safeguard our federal structure. So we are not compromising the autonomy of the states because the discretion that is given to the governor is limited. It's merely procedural. And if governor takes up more role than what was given to him or her, courts have time and again struck down such kind of decisions. A case to the point being the November-2025 judgment of 2016. What happened here? I'll tell you what happened. But before that, I see some new faces, kind of blank faces. Do you know what I'm talking about? Let me give you a quick context. In Tamil Nadu, the governor was not taking a decision on some of the bills which passed the due process. And the bill will become a law only when governor's assent is given. So governor is not taking a decision because there is no time limit within the constitution to take a decision. So many bills were stalled and a case was filed. That PIL said that, decisions are not being taken. And in the role given to the governor, do you think he is bound by the state council of ministers and his advice? Yes or no? Take a look at Article 163 once. Compare that with Article 74 of the President's power and take a look at Article 163. Governor's role is merely procedural. He has three options. Assent. Is there a pocket veto? What is a pocket veto? Keep it. Just like you pocket it and keep quiet. Is that power available to the governor? Why? Then why do you think he was given the discretionary power in the first place? We already discussed this, but let's quickly brush it up. Why was governor given the discretionary power? Equity. There is asymmetrical balance that every state will get its due position. Governor is given that discretion to ensure that states don't set a bad example for the other states. Let's say, for example, if the process is not followed and the governor is quiet and he gives an assent, that becomes a wrong example. Let's say, for example, we took the case of local reservation. Let's say one state wants to come up with 75% local reservation. Now here is the question. Do you think the governor has the power to decide whether this is a constitutional breach or not? No. Do you think he has the discretion to stop it? Assent, dissent, and refer to the, what will happen if he gives a dissent? It will come back. Will it come back? Then what will happen? And if this pass the same thing again? So, in that situation, when he knows that it might set a wrong example, who has more power? Is it the governor or the president? So, in that instance, when the governor knows that it is a constitutional breach, the constitution does not give him the discretion to officially put on paper saying that I will not pass this bill because this is a constitutional breach. That is not his job. He has to merely pass it on like a postman to the president. And president is supposed to take that decision. And through Article 74, he is again bound by the advice of the Council of Ministers. So that is the design, the quasi-federal design of Indian Constitution with a unitary bias. So if the president feels that, okay, if let's say for example Tamil Nadu wants or Haryana wants 85% or 75%, many states came up with this. Haryana, maybe there was a proposal even in Karnataka to give 85% local reservation or something like that. If that bill passes, the very federal structure will be under threat. Why? Because it is violating one of the most fundamental rights of freedom of occupation and freedom of movement. It's an artificial barrier created by the states. When you are through Niti Aayog suggesting that we should have a competitive federalism, this is against that idea. Clear? So, governor is merely a postman and the discretion is used so that every little thing is not sent to the president. He can send it back. And if there is a violation of that norm, courts will pitch in. Here, the court said that we will not see the substance unless there is a procedural breach. I'm not going to question the governor, why are you not taking a decision? I'm not going to come in and say, is this valid or not? If the governor thinks that this is worthy of going to the president, as a court, I will not intervene. Because that is the discretion granted by the constitution itself. But if the governor comes in and says, I will dismiss the chief minister, that is against the constitutional design, because the role of governor is not to bypass the elected legislators. This is essentially laid down in the November judgment of 2016, wherein I think it's in Arunachal Pradesh. When the governor of Arunachal Pradesh went ahead and said that I will remove the chief minister candidate because some grounds. But that is not the prerogative of the governor, because that is not the procedure established. S.R. Bommai judgment gave clear-cut guidelines on how to go about it. Many federal commissions like Punchi Commission had some say in this. Are those norms respected? If the answer is no, the governor has no role to breach and take up a position that is not granted to him in his discretionary powers. So courts will pitch in whenever there is a procedural lapse, but they will not pitch in and question the logic that the governor used to follow the process. This is essentially what the court said. And therefore, court refrained from saying that I don't want to interfere and say that you should fix a timeline, because that's not what the constitution told us to do. That's not the original intent. That silence of the constitutional makers whether a governor should act within a time or not is intentional. That silence ensured that the governors get enough time to think whether it is good or not. But having said that, if a situation like Tamil Nadu arises, you always have the mandamus, where you can file a public interest litigation and maybe ask. So there is a necessity for considering mandamus as a route rather than breaching the constitutional design. This is what the court said. Now, in this situation, you might ask a question. What feels more logical? Do you think the 8th April judgment will act as a norm or the latest one? Do you think, let's say, the next time a governor comes up and says, I will wait to take a decision, any legislator, let's say for example, can go to the court and quote the 8th April judgment and use Tamil Nadu's case where the court said 30 days is a time limit set? Because Supreme Court is a court of record. Once a decision is taken, it will have a weight. In this present case, a 5-judge bench, meaning these are constitutional issues. They laid down the principles. They might not have discussed the older argument, but they've clearly established that whatever old judgment they gave might only be relevant to that particular Tamil Nadu case, and we have to effectively interpret as a case meant for adjudication through mandamus, where you are directing a constitutional authority to act in the way they were supposed to. That's all. It is not fixing guidelines by constitutional amendment, or it is not a suggestion from the judiciary to the legislator that you have to amend the constitution and do this. That would amount to judicial overreach. That's not their job. This was what was questioned. And previously, until this judgment came, we have to take the position of Supreme Court only. When you just say that I can lay down, number of days, what are you essentially saying? Within the basic structure doctrine only, I am interpreting this and I am ensuring that effective governance should be delivered, and therefore it is okay to enter into the legislative domain. That was the trouble that was raised by a lot of constitutional philosophers. And therefore, this present judgment exercised remarkable restraint because it restored that balance which was disturbed in that 8th April judgment. Clear? So, this article is important because it quotes many beautiful examples where such kind of restraint has been respected. I personally like some of the examples given here. One of them being the years of President R. Venkatraman and K.R. Narayanan. In both these cases, when the president used their discretion, the government of that day did not brush it off, even when it involves an opposition. For example, read this. In 1997, the Union Cabinet, headed by the Prime Minister I.K. Gujral, recommended to K.R. Narayanan the dismissal of the Bharatiya Janata Party government in Uttar Pradesh. So it was a state government. If you know a bit or two about the politics of the time, K.R. Narayanan didn't exactly belong to the school of thought that BJP subscribed for. And yet, when he saw that this was not according to the process, he denied. And when he denied that, the Council of Ministers the cabinet did not brush it off. They respected it. That's the kind of politics that was seen back in the day. Something that we are missing in the scene today. So, should we respect the process? Yes, we should. And why aren't we? Because it reflects the political competition sometimes. And use of this kind of examples will actually, sometimes help you remember all this conceptual gaps that we might take it for granted. This is a very complex issue. When you view it through the lens of federalism, when you view it through the lens of the interpretation of the constitution, it can get very tricky. This is the interpretation that I came up with because a 5-judge bench's judgment, which established principles clearly, will take precedence over a lesser, I think it's a 2-judge bench or single judge. 2-judge in the 8th. Okay. So even by that logic, by the very norms established by the Supreme Court, this judgment will take precedence over that old one. Is it overruled technically? Not really. Nobody brought it up. But will it stand the test of a separate, PIL if I want to file a case where I want the governor to take a decision within 30 days? It will be stuck off. And the citation will be this presidential reference. Clear? That's what this article is talking about. The letter has won, but the spirit has not lost. Both were balanced. And it requires remarkable restraint from the Supreme Court to maintain that balance. Otherwise, it's not easy. Clear? See, these are all the same topics that we have discussed multiple times. I'll just give you a brief outlook on how you should be talking about the aspect of health. Health, as such, signifies a state of well-being, both physical and mental. And this requires a unifying philosophy. And for that unifying philosophy, you need governance structures, finances, and social acceptance. GS1, GS2, GS3. And of course, GS4, the value being empathy. And if you're talking from a systemic level, the value of trusteeship. The state should act like a guardian of its citizens' health. This is the overall philosophy of how we should approach health as a topic. Now, when we are talking about the topic of health, the approach to achieve this objective of both physical and mental well-being is through a concept called One Health, where you are not bifurcating, let's say, animals and plant life with human, because we have seen what happened in the COVID pandemic. We are treating it like a interconnected system, a continuum. When you lose touch of this continuum, you are disturbing the balance. Now, to ensure that we protect this continuum where both animals and human beings survive together, we need to take the help of every healthcare system that will come in our direction. This includes Ayurveda, Unani, homeopathy, but with a tinge of scientific temper. It's not because someone used the word traditional or ancient, we should just blindly accept it. That scientific temper is a part of our fundamental duty. Clear? How can state PCS be reformed? A very interesting topic for most of the students. What is the role of a state PCS? Why do you think we should have a state PCS? That is a question mark, not an exclamation. Why do you think we should have a state PCS? Why? State PCS, why? Federalism, same logic, autonomy. And you have state list under Article 240. State, which schedule? Schedule 7, which article? Schedule 7. You have union, state, concurrent, residuary. Basically, when it comes to the state list, you need same approach. What is that same approach? You need funds, you need power, that is functions, you need functionaries to get the job done. So state recruitment comes in this situation where you are supposed to fulfill the state level jobs, so that federal autonomy and its sanctity is intact. But what is the problem? Do I have to talk about it? Most of you must have lived through that experience for quite a while. What is it that I'm talking about? The problem with state PCS is we don't know when they'll come. If they happen, we don't know if they will stay. If you're given a job, you don't know if any judgment can overrule it. And it's equally possible that your date of joining and date of retirement can be the same because of litigation. It is in this context there is a need for streamlining everything. Of course, I'm a bit exaggerating. Date of retirement need not come. It might even surpass that. So why is that situation happening? Because it is heavily politically motivated. Do you have dedicated funds? No. I cannot verify the veracity of this news, but one of the southern states, I don't even want to name it because I'm going on record. One of the states did not have a HR system, a human resource management system, a software which will track the number of employees in the state. They were getting salaries, but they didn't know how many people were there on the payroll. That is the situation of the so-called well-developed states of South India. I cannot verify the claim because it happens to be from one of the consultancy firm which claimed that it is a very discreet job that they were supposed to do. But if it happened really, people don't even know about it, which raises many questions. First of all, if you really want to give the jobs, you should know if you need it. Does the government need more people in the first place? If yes, why? Where can you put them? Can you optimize them? And you need a centralized database for this. In the absence of that, what service delivery are we giving? So we are talking about the last mile service delivery for the citizens. And on the other hand, we don't even know our employees. This includes many contractual employees also. That's the reason we're not sure. And there is a reason for that. It's very fragmented and it's very ad hoc, politically motivated, and that contracts were signed in different time periods for different periods. So there is no, even in the contracts, they were so designed that they look like they were designed for perpetuity. No sunset clause. This is the situation in many state governments. Not just one. It's the situation in many state governments. This is the reality. Okay. If a state government has to recruit, they don't know where they stand. They don't know if they will have the funds. And most importantly, they don't know if they will even complete the recruitment because they have other political commitments. Here is where the entire federalism concept again comes back into the picture. If we are envisioning the role of service delivery and giving that responsibility to the states, are we giving enough monetary powers? The debate goes back to finance commission, devolution. But nobody questions the devolution to the local governments. There are many states which do not have a functioning state finance commission. We only have democracy on paper at the grassroots level. So if you're recruiting, it will be a cost to the government's exchequer. They're not in a position to bear the salaries. Arrears keep on pending. They keep on piling up. This is the present situation. So politicization, lack of data, lack of mapping the skills, lack of a clarity on roadmap for development. These are the broad reasons combined with politicization at the state level that influences the state level jobs. Okay. Now to fix this, there are many suggestions in the past. See, even many aspirants might sometimes feel very frustrated with this and say that, why not give it to UPSC? If it were that simple, don't you think the original constitutional philosophers who designed the system would have given it anyway? If that is not the case, there must be some logic behind it. That logic is designed for a worst case scenario. Just because we are not capable of delivering that system, you cannot erase that safety mechanism. And this safety mechanism was not something that came just after independence. It was existing way back in 1919. Okay. So from British time itself, provinces were given the autonomy because they knew local issues will be dealt better when you have a local body, not a centralized body. And that doesn't augur well for the whole idea of a democracy. Therefore, state PCS have a role. It is that they are at this point of time inefficient and incompetent. The solution is not merging it with UPSC, but to fix them. Otherwise, the federal balance again will get distorted. The design of federalism, you should not forget it. Yes, there is a unitary bias, but you push it a bit more, states will collapse. So it acts like a guardrail and protects that regional autonomy where no single region feels like they're being left out. The ability to take their own decisions is one of them. If something is going on, fix the system. This is what the article central philosophy is, and they talk about a central level body which is going to set standards. That central level body will aid the state PCS wherever there are lacunae, because you don't have the necessary skilled infrastructure like UPSC does on a rolling basis for a lot of state PCS. The syllabus is outdated, heavily politicized, and technology is not completely relied upon. Even if they are relied upon, there's a lot of litigation. To fix all of these issues, there is a necessity for a centralized body for setting standards, something like DOPT. This is what the article recommends. Use technology, streamline expected exam calendar, have a financial management plan for recruitment, and release the job calendar and execute it so that there is a sense of predictability. If they do that, the relevance of the state PCS will not be questioned, and thereby, as an extension of that logic, federal autonomy is not questioned. This is the article. Okay. So I think there are other articles, let's say for example labor codes, etc., which will discuss in the month of December along with vulnerable sections as a theme. whether it is with respect to gender, labor, old age people, disabled, socially disadvantaged people. All these groups together will combine, and for the entire year, whatever issues are there will cover in a few classes, and then other issues like science and technology will also be covered in those classes, because that's the best way to cover these issues. Okay, that's it for the day. Thank you.